Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Can you hear me all right? Okay. I'm Christabel von Wallstrom, and I lead Location Intelligence at MasterCard. And I'm thrilled to be here, in part because I bet when you came in this room this morning, you didn't put MasterCard on your short list for Location Intelligence. But I'm going to try and change that. So let me figure out how to work the machine. There we go. So I'm going to talk about the two examples that Laura mentioned. I'm going to talk about Snowmageddon, and I'm going to talk about some travel trends. But before I get to the really fun stuff, let me talk about the data itself. So you may be familiar with MasterCard. Our core competency is not location intelligence. It's transaction processing. And in that dimension, we have over 2 billion cards in over 200 countries, and 160,000 transactions per hour, every hour. So even in a big data industry, those are big numbers. But I think what's exciting is not the largeness of our data, the 10 petabyte database, the 5-year history. What's exciting is the insights that we can generate at a local level. And when we talk about location intelligence, if you think about someone swipes a credit card at a location, now we know there's a store there. We know the name of the store, the type of store, the address. But that's it. Then if you think about thousands of cards and millions of transactions, now we can find out some things about this business. We can see if it's seasonal, we know if it's growing, we know if locals go there or if tourists go there. We see a lot of insights into the business at that local level. And that's what I do, and I'm thrilled to talk to all of you at great length offline about it after I get off the stage. But since I only have 10 minutes, I'm going to go straight into my two examples. The first one is Snowmageddon. So I came here from the East Coast, and as we've already heard a couple of references to it today, it's snowing there. It's been snowing. It's still snowing. In fact, my daughter is home from school today because they has yet another snow day. But there was an event in January on the East Coast that they loosely called Snowmageddon. And we wanted to look at an event analysis. So before what happened, during what happened, and then what happened after. So what you see on the stage is Boston, divided by zip code and colored by the intensity of the transactions happening there. And this is a week before the actual snowstorm. We looked at just specific types of spend that we thought would be storm-driven. So we're looking at groceries, because everyone goes out and buys food right before the storm. We're looking at hardware, because everyone goes to buy a shovel. We're looking at fuel, because everyone puts gas in their car. And also, some people go and get gas for their generators in case the power is out. And we're looking at alcohol, because really what else do you need during a storm? So here's Tuesday. This is, again, a few days before. You're starting to get a sense of what spend looks like. The pinkish zip codes, there's some spend here or there. Then Friday, you start to see it darken a little. There's more spend going on in these zip codes. There was snow expected on Saturday, but it wasn't the big storm, so people are spending a little bit more. Let me pause here for a second. You may have noticed, although it's a little bit hard to see on these screens, you may have noticed that these maps are co-branded. So MasterCard partnered with CartoDB to create these visualizations, our data and their mapping platform. And I just wanted to give a shout out. CartoDB is here. Andrew Hill is on site. So afterwards, if you want to talk to me about the data, but talk to Andrew about these maps. So then Monday night, or Monday, the media started talking about Snowmageddon and Snowpocalypse, and everybody dashed out and bought groceries and wine. Where I live, you couldn't find a leaf of kale or a bottle of white wine to save your life, just the essentials, like I said. And as you see, the spend is really darkening in Boston. And then it snowed. So this is Tuesday. You saw Tuesday last week, and so you know what to expect. And this Doesn't look like what you'd expect, except that it was snowing, and I love the fact that the zip codes all turned white. That wasn't on purpose, but it was a whiteout. And then by Friday, snow had stopped, people had dug out, and you start to see the spend going back up. So this is an example of what I started with, this global database in 200 countries and so on, but an example of how we bring it down to a local level. And we've got data here, and I should mention these were 3-hour slices, so this is always 3 to 6 p.m. on each of these days by zip code in this city. And we've got so much data that we have huge sample sizes even as we get into smaller and smaller slices. So this is an example, firstly, of that. And secondly, of when the data does exactly what you think it's going to do. I'm sure you've all had experiences where you have a hypothesis and you run the data and it proves your hypothesis. That's what happened here. In my next examples, I'm going to talk about when that doesn't happen or you come up on some surprises. So the second example is I wanted to bring an example that would be something we all have in common. What we all have in common, of course, is we're here in Denver, and that most of us came from somewhere. So I looked at travel trends into Denver. What you see here is the United States and the top 50 cities highlighted, and Denver. And on this slide, what you see, again, a little bit hard to see, but hopefully you can see there are lines coming into Denver from countries all over the world. And some things are not surprising, like there's a big line from Canada, which is true for most cities in the US. A lot of Canadians come here. But the other big line is from Germany. So, a lot of Germans come to Denver. That's interesting. We then looked into spend. What are the Germans coming to Denver for? And you can see, hopefully you can see, that they over-index on sporting equipment. So the Germans are coming to Denver and they're buying sporting equipment. Chances are, and this I don't know, but chances are they're coming to ski. I guess the Alps got boring and so they came to Denver. So this was kind of, we didn't really have a theory about who was coming to Denver and what they were going to do. This was just an insight that I wanted to share. But it was so much fun, we then went to, well, let's look at a hot weather city. Denver's a cold weather city for the skiing. Let's look at Miami. So same thing for Miami. We looked at incoming travelers. And again, you see Canada, like I said. But then there's a big line, the biggest line to Miami, was a surprise to me at least, it's from Brazil. I think of Miami as the sun. That's what I would go to Miami. But what we see here is Brazil. They have plenty of sun in Brazil, so what are they going to Miami for? So again, we looked at their spend, and we see they over-index on retail. They're shopping. The Brazilians go to Miami, and they over-index on department stores, discount stores, apparel. So they're going to shop. So I'm going to pause again here and talk a little bit about why I'm being so vague about apparel retailers and discount stores and not actually naming any names. And the reason is because MasterCard is passionate about privacy. I mentioned that our core business is transaction processing. When those transactions come through our system, we get the information about the merchant, the name and address, type of business. But about the cardholder, all we get is a card number. We don't know their name, we don't know their address, their age, gender, or any other demographic. And we like it that way. We keep the cardholder's information totally private. But we also, to an extent, keep the merchant's information private. We don't share anything sensitive about any particular merchant without their permission. So I can tell you these trends and provide insights, but until the retailers in Miami give me permission to tell you about their incoming visitors from Brazil, I can't share any details. I do question if those retailers even know that they have so many Brazilians coming in. This is the insight that we can share with them. So just as a continuation on Miami, finding it very hard to read that. All right, so continuing on Miami, we also looked at one of the other lines coming into Miami was from the United Kingdom. And just to compare them with the Brazilians, we looked at their spend. And the very left-hand bar is travel category. So the British are coming to Miami to do what I would have expected them to do. They're over-indexing on cruises. So they're coming for the sun and the sand and the water, which makes sense. Then just down the road in Orlando, and carrying on the theme of the British, you see a big fat line from the United Kingdom into Orlando. And here you see a really high over-index on entertainment. And in this category is theme parks. So again, I can't name names, but you can probably think of some key examples. That's what they're going to Orlando for. So I have one parting example, and again, if you remember, this was my example about sometimes the data does what you think it's going to do, and sometimes it's a surprise. I'm going to end talking about Columbus. So when we looked at the data from Columbus, we were so surprised that at first we thought it must be wrong. Any guesses on where people are coming to Columbus from? Outside of the US? I didn't hear any guesses, but I'm guessing you would have been wrong anyway, because it's China. So when we saw this, we thought that the data must be wrong. But of course, the data is never wrong, and when we looked into it and what people were spending on, they were spending on books and computers, office supplies, and fast food. They're college students. Oh, okay, the data's not wrong. It's just I didn't think of that. I was thinking of travelers coming for vacation. So here's where I leave you. I want to just finish up. Hopefully you've seen how a vast global database can be brought down to very local insights. I want to share that I hope that you'll all come and talk to me afterwards. That we have a special price just for you if you want to buy any of our data, 30% off our data and a 90 days free trial on our API. So come and talk to us. I hope I've shown you that the data can be utilized to generate local insights, and I'm looking forward to talking to you no matter where you came to Denver from. Thank you.